Okay, good afternoon, CloudTalk. Hope you can hear me. This is my first online presentation at the online conference, so I hope you wouldn't be too harsh. My name is Vuksan Rajkovic, and I work for .me domain names. And today we'll be talking about getting creative with domain names. So, what's up with .me? Well, .me is the country code domain name for Montenegro. And it was launched in 2008 when the country of Montenegro restored its independence. So basically .me for Montenegro is the same what .com.tr is for Turkey, what .de is for Germany, what .fr is for France. We have about 1 million domain names, and we operate over our network of registrar partners. We have about 400 of them. Registrar is just a technical term for domain name providers. It could be ISP, it could be hosting provider, it could be anyone who offers domain name registration. And we operate in literally every country in the world. So if you register a domain name, it had to go through us. We are on top of the pyramid. We are on top of the pyramid. But most importantly, we think that .me is a perfect fit for the digital age we live in. Why? Well, because it adds personal flavor to your brand, product, or service, and basically it makes something that is virtual less distant and more appealing to the user. Now, how to get creative with these domains? Well, first, .me creates memorable call to action. I hope that everyone knows what call to action is, but in case you don't, here's the definition on the screen. So it is basically a message that prompts you to the action, that pushes you to do something online. And if you think about it, every combination of verb in English language, .me domain, creates this call to action. So just try to think about words like try me, help me, make me, find me, sell me, buy me, so on and so forth. So they kind of remain stuck in your head. And it didn't take long for businesses to figure this out and to start registering these call to action segments to make sure they can explain what they do in literally 2 words. So let's take a look at a few examples. So for instance, this one here, it's called Join Me, and it is online meeting and scheduling application. But what they do is like very, very well explained in only these 2 words, join me. And if you send the join me link, I'll have a pretty good idea what I need to do. Then the other one, Diagnose Me. This is a platform that connects patients with medical experts who can provide diagnosis for them. Again, very straightforward, easy to understand. Now, someone would say, yes, it's easy to create call to action with these domains. I mean, they're very well known, they're probably premium, but it doesn't necessarily have to be like that. Here are some examples of non-premium domains that create call to action. For instance, this one, so it's Themify Me. So Themify is obviously a made-up verb from the noun theme. And what these guys do is they actually provide drag and drop theme builder for WordPress. And they're among 10 most popular domain names, and they managed to do it with call to action on a made-up verb. And there's a similar one called Drupalize.me. Again, made-up verb from the noun Drupal, which is programming language. And these are experts that offer training sessions in Drupal anytime, anywhere. And in addition to these 2, there are many others. There's one called Hashtagify Me, which basically helps you market your business with hashtags on Twitter. There is Connectify Me, and so on and so forth. Apart from the call to action, there's also this quality of being short. And at least we can say this in online world. So short is better. It is better because it helps you reduce the number of characters in social media, and it makes your mobile links visible and, in the end of the day, decipherable. And if you add that call to action that we discussed earlier to the quality of being short, then you get something that is, again, very powerful. didn't take a long time for the big brands to understand that, and they started using short me domain names as their personal shorteners. So for instance, we have Facebook here that uses fb.me as a shortener. So if the username is posted on Facebook, it will be shortened from facebook.com to fb.me/your username. If anything else is posted on Facebook, again, it will be shortened to this time on.fb.me slash string of letters and characters. But it doesn't end here. WordPress is also using their short domain name on .me. So it's wp.me. And it's used by WordPress.com. So anything that is shortened on WordPress would go to the, any blog post on WordPress would actually have this short link, wp.me/string of letters and characters. Then there's Telegram as well, a very well-known messaging app. They use t.me. Again, everything, the username comes after it. But it doesn't always have to be shortener. I mean, there are other uses for short domain names. For instance, there is Lime, which is a well-known bike sharing and scooter sharing application. You might, if I go to the next screen, you might recognize the Lime. So they actually migrated from a .com to .me. So they migrated from lime.com to li.me domain name. And this reflects their philosophy and what they do much better, because they're trying to sort of shorten the distance for you. And at the same time, they're doing that online as well as offline. And I'm sure you've seen Line scooters and bikes all over the world. I mean, they're very popular in Europe and North America. And I believe there's Line in Asia as well. There's Line in Asia as well. Also, 11.me. This is a startup from Bulgaria that switched from 11, the word, so ELEVEN.me, to the number 11.me. And again, they use something like that as a trick to make their name more memorable, more appealing. It's probably the only accelerator, actually the only accelerator I know about that is using numbers instead of letters for their primary URL. And again, as mentioned before, these do not have to be necessarily premium domain names. They can be regular domain names that can be registered for anything between $5 to $20. For instance, all these companies use, or at one point used, .me for their short domain names. So for instance, you have Airbnb here using airbnb.me on Twitter. DeviantArt, which is one of the bigger, if not the biggest, the largest community for artists online, is using fav.me. So whatever they post from DeviantArt on Twitter is shortened to fav.me. Indiegogo, crowdfunding platform, they use igg.me. So again, everything on Twitter is posted to igg.me. So as I said, how creative you can get with domain names doesn't have to depend on how much money you have. Just depends on the level, on the degree of inventiveness, how much effort you put into it. Other ways to get creative: subdomain. Yes. So subdomain is something that is left of the dot. So if my second level domain name or primary domain name is vuksan.me, subdomain would be my.vuksan.me. For instance, in this case, the primary domain name is by.me. It's here, and the subdomain would be home.by.me. And in this instance, this is actually a proprietary software that helps you design your own home. But if these guys decided to branch into some other areas, for instance, allow you to design your own furniture or your own sunglasses or your own bikes, they can have furniture.by.me, bikes.by.me, sunglasses.by.me, everything under this subdomain. And it keeps your traffic together under one umbrella. So basically, any company that is a multi-brand can have primary domain name for a corporate name and then subdomains for each brand. or for instance, when it comes to Line, which is another well-known messaging app, especially in Asia, they actually have different segments of their operations on third-level domain name. For instance, they have, on subdomain. For instance, they have here timeline.line.me on line.me. And again, what applies for the other instances of getting creative also applies to this one. So not everything has to be for premium domain names, not everything has to be expensive. This is the example of Leah Vero, who is a famous web artist and web designer. She registered her last name here. She's vero.me. But she created her website on leah.vero.me. And she follows the pattern first name, last name.me. And there are a lot of instances like this where people create subdomains on their last name, for instance, for websites of the family members. Or you don't even have to create websites. I mean, it works equally well with emails. So if you want to separate your business email, which is, for instance, on .com, from your personal family email, which is, for example, on .me, you can do that as well. I mean, I did that for my family, and I have Vuksan at Rajkovic.me here for myself. And then like for my father, I have this one, for my mother, this one, for my brother, this one. And in the end of the day, it's only my father who continued using it. But again, it is whim, because he now separates personal email from business email, and he's using it on a personal domain name. And then one more thing that is actually a very good fit for the idea of getting creative with domain names is rise of shortening services, URL shortening services. Well, these services actually appeared some 10 or 11 years ago. And at the beginning, they were just what they were intended for. They were just shortening your URLs. So you would like type in this long URL and you would get something like shorten.com/ like 2 or 3 characters, up to 5 or 6. But eventually they evolved and they become more of a link managing platforms, like Bitly, bit.ly, like Rebrandly, like Capsulink, and many others. And what they essentially provide is 2 things. So the first thing is they're getting smart. So you can decide on the time, place, and audience you want to engage. Basically, I can say, oh, I want to target this group of people who use tablet or who use cell phone or who use desktop, and I want to do it over this browser. But what is more important, they got brandable. And this is where domains come into play. So brandable essentially means that they can use their own custom domains. What does this mean? For the application frame, which actually exists, it makes much more sense to use frame, fra.me, than a random bit.ly link. Why does it make more sense? Well, because it increases brand awareness, because it spreads the idea of their name, of their brand. It increases engagement as well as click-through rate, because it's much more likely that someone will click on frame than on a random link that looks like this. And it also reduces the abuse, because the short links are often can be sometimes perceived as abusive, especially if people use them for that purpose. And there are multiple examples of companies using custom domain names.
Mr. Vuksan, last 5 minutes. Thank you.
Last 5 minutes. Okay, perfect. Yeah. We're close to wrapping it up. There are examples of big companies using these custom domain names for online campaigns or promotions. And again, as I mentioned before, doesn't have to be premium. So for instance, we have here Nike, Panda Express, and Lamborghini doing something like this. For instance, you have Panda Express here making a very, very clever usage of Radix's extension, which is .press. So they registered pandex.press, pronounced together as Panda Express. Or here, Lamborghini using Bolivian extension, Bolivian cctld.bo, and they're using it for Lambo, which is short for Lamborghini. And then Nike had a campaign about 6 or 7 years ago where they used Go Nike.me for the campaign. As you can see here, it was tweeted by Wayne Rooney. But in the end of the day, we need to ask ourselves questions. Well, actually, you need to ask yourself a question. Why am I telling you this? Why is this important? Why bother to get creative with domain names when you can just go to Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, or whatever platform there is? Well, the thing is, because the domain name registration belongs to you. So it's not that you would post a picture or video and the next day the platform will own it. It's not that that platform will disappear suddenly with all your data. With domain names, you own the links you have. You own, well, hopefully you own the content under the website that domain name links to. And to put it simply, you would be and you would remain your own engineer as long as you get creative with domains. And that's basically it. That's my presentation. Hope it was inspirational. Hope you would use some of these tips and tricks. We will see now if there's any questions, but for any further Q&A, you can just email me or ping me on Facebook or ping me on CloudTalk platform. Hope you guys enjoyed. Let's see. Let me stop sharing and let's see if there are any questions. If we don't have time. If we have some time. Okay, guess not. So if there are any questions, can see if I'm still. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Well, if there are any questions, I'm here to reply, to respond. Basically, the idea is just to make sure that what you do online is yours.